And we're back. Season 4, Episode 19. Oh, hang on, that would be this. There we go. Season 4, Episode 19. For whom the Sweetie Belle tolls. This is the episode in which Sweetie Belle is like, I really feel like maybe I hate you. And so she decides to sabotage Rarity on the perceived slight of Rarity overshadowing her, and then she regrets it and she tries to undo it. The end. And that is the episode. Now, for those of you not aware, first of all, we're back. We're back. Second of all, I have decided, it's because you guys were requesting this multiple times, I've decided to keep the... It's all red! I can't break my voice like she does. Can't do the voice crack. I've decided to start keeping the spreadsheet live in a viewable format. This is a Dave Polsky vehicle. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So naturally, Sweetie Belle doesn't ask for help for something she needs until she needs it tomorrow night. And I put this in my notes right at the beginning. Of course, Rarity is already a workaholic who does agree to help, by the way. Despite everything, despite the fact that she is overwhelmed with something that's very important for her career, she still is doing that. I'm going to ignore what Sierra Mike just said in chat, if that's okay with you. and she agrees to help, because of course she does. Which then leads to the very next scene of Apple Bloom. How could she, not be here yet? Like, she's known about this for weeks. Yeah. And yeah, workaholism obviously works in the family. Not only perfectionism, but the fact that Sweetie Belle wrote, directed, and is acting in her own film. Something I hope to do someday. That explains a lot. Now, I actually have several topics today, so forgive me, this might run a little bit long. The first topic I want to talk about is, so this is actually two topics kind of combined here. That's true, I am acting, directing in the theater, and I did do all the editing as well. First of all, the desire to do everything by yourself is something I actually really understand. I don't actually know how to explain it. How many of you know what that feels like? Like, with very few exceptions, what I do here with my show is me. This is overwhelmingly me. I edit, I record, I write, I design, I think, I watch. You know, my intros are done by me. The music you see at the beginning of the Ruminations, that's me. The stylings, the text, the thumbnails, the website is all made. You know, now there are exceptions to that. I don't want to sound like it's just me, but it's. I understand that vibe and that desire and interest in doing just the overwhelming amount of work completely by myself. Not because I don't necessarily want other people involved, but because this is my show, right? Yes, it's right here, by the way. Don't worry, I've got it. I got it right here. Don't let me forget. Put it in my lap. But at the same time, a lot of that desire to do it myself doesn't... I'm trying to think how to phrase this. It doesn't really... It's not because I want to be the sole focus of attention. It's not because I want all the praise. Don't mistake me. I like the spotlight being on me. I wouldn't be on Twitch or YouTube if I didn't. But it's about wanting to do it my way, if that makes any sense, which I know is an aspect of my own stubbornness. Now, this is all speaking from the perspective of someone who, you know, doesn't have a big sister who's overshining me right there up in the corner. No, this is just from a normal perspective. Sweetie Belle, of course, has the big sister who she feels like she has to be in constant competition with, because that's kind of how that works. My own sister, to use a parallel here, has said many times that she... It took her a little bit to get comfortable with the fact that I was, in her own words, the most ambitious human being she's ever met. And someone that obviously just, you know, would work himself way, 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 way farther and harder and more than she would. And it took her a little while to be, you know, okay with that. So I suppose I'm the rarity of this one. Whatever. Point being, I get it, and I do understand the idea of wanting to do that. And here's the catch, though. When you do everything yourself, it can be a very interesting experience, and there are certain people who can accomplish that. But, there's... Yeah, I need a drama couch. Let's do a fake, I guess. I mean, Rarity is the one I am most like. We've already established this. I work harder than Rarity does. Think about that. Anyways, but there's the misconstrued helping thing. This is an interesting thing to add to the equation. Helping is one of those things. Believe it or not, no, SA2K. Helping is one of those things that really, it's almost universally good, but I can easily see how someone is like, hey, let me help you out with that, can be misconstrued as, oh, here, you suck, so here, let me do it for you. A lot of that, in my opinion, boils down to tone and approach. Let me use an example, okay? So, someone say something wrong in chat, really quick. Just say something that is incorrect in chat, so I can use this as an explanation. Because I need something specific to go off of it, and I don't have something for some strange reason. Sky is green. Okay, there we go. Okay, the sky is green. I'm going to go with that one. So, approach number 1. What is wrong with you? Have you not looked outside recently? Do you not have eyes to see? Are you just so blind and dumb? Maybe you're just making up stuff. The sky isn't green, you moron. Option 2. Hey, Savicom. I don't know, like, if you're... The sky's actually not green. I mean, it can be kind of greenish, depending on the tint, but it tends to lean more towards a bluish and kind of like the amber red thing. So it's not really green. I'm not sure where you're coming from. That. Why did you think of that? Why did you say that? Now, this is important. What I just said and what I just said are the same thing. The exact same information has been conveyed both ways. That information being, you are wrong. However, the methodology of the presentation completely changes the intended outcome of this communication, right? You know, rule 0. Don't be a frickin' dick. Now, I bring this up because if you try to help someone, that kind of... It can be taken depending on how it is being done. You know, where the method by which you were trying to help someone can vastly change whether or not someone's actually being insulting or not. And I only point this out, the episode doesn't really bring this up as a point because Rarity is obviously not being rude. In fact, quite the contrary. Rarity is very demonstrably caring about her little sister's play and wanting to be an important part of it. You know, I want to help you because you matter to me. But it is still an important part I wanted to comment on because that is something that a lot of people seem to not understand in modern society is how you communicate does matter just as much as what you communicate. As I like to say many times, just because you're right doesn't make you not an asshole. This then leads me to my next point. Yeah, because obviously this is kind of a self-esteem problem and that's the kind of thing that needs to be communicated through. I'll get to that in just a second. Like I said, I have a bit to talk about today. It's just the talky day, isn't it? I really do hope I have time to get groceries in a minute. Your first everything is gonna suck. Right? That's one of those interesting lessons that we kind of need to acknowledge and is very important for kids and frankly for adults too. Because there are plenty of people who are in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s. Yes, I do know someone in their 80s who started a new thing. Only one person, but it still counts. That you try something new, and guess what happens the first time you try something new? You suck at it. Because that's life. Is the first time you try something, you suck at it. And of course, yeah, and then you get discouraged, right? It's like, oh god, this is terrible. Why am I even bothering? What's the point of this? Ugh. Why am I even going in this? And yeah, as Savicom points out, it's even worse when you're already a perfectionist. When you're already someone like Sweetie Belle, like Rarity, like me. My friend Gary has said several times that I am a perfectionist. He does not mean that as a compliment. It's something that has to be worked on. He's right. It is something that you got to work around, right? So when you're a perfectionist, then you try something first time and you suck at it, it's even harder to deal with. And then, yeah, I was going to say, SA2K got there first for me. The third layer for this, for poor Sweetie Belle, So she wants to do it by herself. I guess actually fourth place. She wants to do it by herself. She's getting helped by her much better at it than she is sister. I mean, we saw the original outfits she was wearing, she was putting together, right? Those are terrible. Because of course they were. She's not good at designing or seaming or anything like that, is she? Right? First try, etc. So, we got those two aspects. Then we have the fact that it's her first try and she's going to suck at it. Then we have the fact that what she's trying to do is something that her sister is so much better at it. And what we have is a problem. Of course it boils over. Of course she explodes. Of course she, as Baron pointed out in chat, has an in-the-moment moment. And as I've said many, many times, being in the moment, that is a really, really dangerous and terrible place to be. We can do a lot of things that are not us. We can do things that are not actually us when we're in the moment. Things we would never do. Things that are completely against our personality or our ideals or mindsets or emotions, just because in that moment our brains are literally not working properly. So, by the way, another little asterisk onto this thing. Learning that the first time you try a thing is going to suck, that's a lesson. A much more difficult and adult lesson is learning the next 20 or so times you're going to try something is going to suck too. That's a much harder lesson. So, really small bit. Sweetie Belle does the exhale thing. I just really minor point. I just wanted to comment on it. Spike is the first one to jump in and be like, "Hey guys," and Spike is helpful because Spike is awesome. He also mentions two things. First of all, this is really important. Part number one. He actually is fairly overt and honest about his overall feedback, even though he doesn't talk about the thing. But point two, Rarity and the other main six aren't here because they're busy doing the work Rarity wasn't doing to help Sweetie Belle out. Now, Sweetie Belle doesn't understand that, of course, but it's very important information to get across that Rarity thought this was so important. Just this little stupid play that nobody really cares about. I mean, you know what I mean. This play that she's putting on for fun as part of her hobby is something that she put as a higher priority than her job. And actually landing this big and very important contract with Sapphire Shores. Yeah, this is Rarity. I've talked about this before. Rarity has several bumps in her career throughout the course of this show, which is actually kind of awesome that there's that continuity to her career approach. This is one of those big bumps. This is a gunk getting Sapphire Shores and being the main designer for her. This is a big deal. She still put Sweetie Belle before that, but of course Sweetie Belle doesn't see that. So this then goes to, yeah, exactly, Sean. This then goes into Sweetie Belle going through the other thing we all go through. How many of you have ever made something? Painting, drawing, written work, music, dance, play, something you've acted in. And what do you want? So, how'd you like it? How was it? What do you think? We want feedback. Human beings, by our very nature, even those of us who are quiet or insulated, still tend to want... Did you? I did the stylings. I was thinking about making the J a little bit different, a little bit larger than the other letters, but then I thought maybe I should go for like a uniform thing instead, and I'm just going to explain every detail that my mind went through as I'm designing this because I want that feedback. We need that feedback. It's how we are. So she goes around looking for feedback. Now this is the funny thing. Oh yeah, I love that. Classy. This is the funny thing about human beings. Almost universally, people do not know how to give feedback. I have worked for years in reviewing and analysis. I have had to put actual work into giving feedback to people over little things. Because it's not natural. It just doesn't click. It's not there innately. You know what most people say? Oh, I liked it. Or, it was nice. Now, they're not... The thing is, they're not thinking analytically, right? They aren't actually trying to be dismissive. They're not trying to be insulting. They literally don't know how to answer you because they haven't put the work necessary into giving an analytical answer, which is what you want, right? You want them to say, oh man, dude, I love what you did with the J on that. I mean, if you had made the J a little bit larger, I don't think this would have worked out as well. But the fact that the J forms a smooth line so that there's a neat arc, it adds to the continuity of the page. That's what they want to hear. That's what's there. It might even be what they're thinking, but they don't know how to say that. You'll notice there's a comment there. This is the second time I've brought up communication in this episode. Being able to communicate that kind of feedback is a big deal. This is one of the reasons why Gum Gum in chat, who doesn't like anything whatsoever about MLP, I fail, because I'm usually busy, but I do try to give actual feedback to rather than, oh, that sounds dumb. Some of you may know I work on music. Back in the day, I actually used to make my own music, most of which is now lost thanks to a hard drive crash. That sucked, but the reason I bring that up is because one of the things that used to infuriate me is people would listen to it and buy it. I used to sell CDs of my music. This is not a joke. And they loved it, and you know what kind of feedback I'd get? Oh, I like that song. And this one. This song's really nice. God, that used to infuriate me. I used to have my girlfriend listen to my, at the time, which girlfriend? That would have been her. I used to have her listen to that, because I usually would run most of my music by various girlfriends. And I'd be like, what do you think of this song? Oh, this is really nice. I have retained 2 of my original songs, Savacom, and they're only the very first songs I ever wrote, and I'm not making you listen to them because they're just crap. But no, I really did lose a huge amount of work in that hard drive crash. It really sucked. That's why I have backups nowadays. Drives me batty. So this, of course, yeah, you get it, Gum Gum, you get it. I'm sure most of you out there who have gotten this kind of feedback get it. Now, all of this helps you to... you know me, I like to make things personal. I like to get you into the mindset there. This is why I wanted to put you into this mindset. For when Sweetie Belle walks around, you notice we're still like at the 3rd scene of the episode. And she's just walking around like, hey, what'd you think? What particular lines did you like? She wants feedback. Now, she may not want the kind of feedback I'm talking about, because I'm talking from the perspective of someone who's 38. But the point is... you still want that, right? You still want someone to get... yeah, the frame was nice. Exactly, Roscoe. The frame was nice. The dresses were really cool looking. So you see how these two things kind of collide here. Because first of all, we have... you did your first thing ever. It sucked. She does admit this at the end of the episode. The second thing is, of course, the total lack of feedback. These are really frustrating things, even if rarity wasn't even part of the equation. If there was no rarity, no overbearing sister, no things, this is already a very frustrating situation, which I'm expositing upon so much to really put you into the headspace that Sweetie Belle is in when she then goes and chews out rarity for helping. Because in standard logic, what Sweetie Belle does is completely unreasonable, but that's the point, isn't it? What she does is completely unreasonable from an external perspective. What Sweetie Belle is thinking right there is... "Grrr!" And she has the sister complex to begin with. The dresses really were amazing, as she herself says. Super perfectly awesome, I think is what she called them. And she has no one else to vent at. That's another very human problem. We need an individual, one individual, that we need to pin the blame on, right? I almost said something out loud I shouldn't say. Let me say a more neutrally acceptable way of saying that, okay? So those of you who live in the United States, it's all the president's fault. All of it. I've said this before. One of the president's job in the United States, this is not a joke. One of the president's job is to be a target. This is not new. This is really, really old. This is a really long-standing tradition. And, yeah. It's the PM's fault. It's the PM's fault. It's Margaret Thatcher's fault. I'll use a specific example there. How many people have pinned a target on Margaret Thatcher over the years? Hey, Nemesis. So, she needs a blame figure. So she charges in to Rarity, because she's the only blame figure she's got. The only other person to blame is herself. Think about that one. So. Oh, hang on. I forgot one other thing. Sorry, I gotta return to the feedback scene really quick. So there's the problem where people, you know, don't really know how to give feedback. But there's actually another unrelated problem there. This is an actual problem. See, the problem is the people weren't willing to give constructive feedback. Now, let me explain that for a bit. Let's say Savacom comes to me, and she has made a custom doll, and it sucks. Okay? Now, let's say I look at this doll and I say, Savacom, it looks all right. I like it. It's good. It's good. It's got some good stuff going on. Don't do that. That's not positive. That's not positive feedback. That's not constructive feedback. That's I don't want to hurt your feelings, which actually, in my experience, universally makes things worse. Be polite. Remember I mentioned earlier about the tone? Be polite. Be amiable. Don't be a dick about it. But you need to tell her to, you know, look at this doll Savacom made and said, well, this is not very well made. And then you need to go through, because you need to clarify that. You need to say, well, this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. That can vary depending on the person, Shikor. That's very valid. But you get my point, right? Constructive feedback does not mean praise. This is something a lot of people don't seem to understand in my experience. So no one in that room, and they make it very clear, they do a zoomed out shot, and they show everyone in the room who all kind of looks around uncomfortably, because they clearly don't want to give constructive feedback to a 12-year-old or however old she is, in order to tell her, this sucked. But that's what she needs. You need to have that kind of feedback, right? Anyways, so now we're finally moving on from that scene. Sorry, like I said, we have a lot to talk about. This then leads to her going after Rarity, who of course doesn't understand because Sweetie Belle's being, you know, not really... I mean, you're right, Sean, and you're right, Dream Whisperer. To be clear, I'm not saying this as if this is easy, okay? This is not a joke when I say I've put actual work into trying to figure out how to tell someone that something they do kind of sucks. The approach I use nowadays, especially since it's usually in text, is to be very neutral. I don't say, this is garbage. I say, this doesn't work. I say, this sentence needs to be restructured. This could be chopped off here. This doesn't need to be over here. This is unnecessary. Very neutral, very plain. That's the approach I tend to use because, in my experience, 38 years, that's what tends to work the best for the most people. And that's a skill I had to learn. So, you stole the spotlight from me just like you always do. This leads to another topic. We're just going to jump over 2 scenes here because she rants at her and then she talks about the ribbon. It's all red. So the first lesson is communication. Now, I'm not going to necessarily blame Sweetie Belle here, but I'm kind of going to blame Sweetie Belle here because communication's important. If Sweetie Belle had told Rarity about this a few weeks ago, it would have been fine, right? Or if she'd simply decided to not involve Rarity, it'd have been fine. I know that sounds like a strange thing to comment on, but think about this for just a moment. Oh, I know, SA2K. I'm not being too harsh, at least I don't think I am. Hang on, let me be too harsh for a second. Sweetie Belle sucks, and she's dumb and stupid. There we go, okay. Exactly, Saldir. Someone just saying you suck is like telling someone in a video game, get good. No information is conveyed there. No, really, no information is conveyed. All it is just a generic thumbs up or thumbs down, which is not informative. So, now that we've established that Sweetie Belle sucks, we need to also establish something else she does. Communication's obvious, but expectation is something I want to talk about. Now, this makes perfect sense, especially for a human being, but for a 12-year-old, she rants about all the time and effort she spent working for Rarity and helping Rarity out, And I don't think she says this word for word, but the tone of how she's speaking is very clearly, I am owed this. Rarity owes me because I did all this for her. Now that's a dangerous line to cross. That can lead to some really messed up things in real life. And that is a lesson that does need to be learned. That just because you offer to help someone does not automatically mean they now owe you back. If you trade, if this is a service agreement, sure. But if I decide, if Savacom, I keep picking on her today, I'm sorry, Savacom. Savacom comes to me and says, hey, Lore, can I get your help on this? Yeah, sure. And I help. And then I act like Savacom owes me for this help that I have offered her. We have a problem. And again, this can lead to very unpleasant things. I hate to bring anime into this, but if you've ever seen Magica Puella de I don't know how to pronounce it, that was actually a major theme for one of the characters in that work. There was a woman, I'm going to kind of dance around names to avoid super spoilers, but there's a woman who decides to sacrifice in order to help someone. In so doing, she then slowly builds up this expectation that he owes her for the sacrifice she willingly gave to help him out. It's like, oh, it's all worth it just so we can do this. But then, she wants out of this too, and she ends up not getting out of that. He didn't even know too. That's relevant. He wasn't even aware of how much she sacrificed, and it just kind of festers and rots in there. And she basically gets worse and worse and worse until she cracks, more or less literally. Anime, and yeah, that kind of thing. And of course, that's a very real problem in real life and is a very important lesson that needs to be learned. This is also part of communication, by the way. It's really a trend this episode. So then, she decides to punch the pillow, which, yeah, actually, that's pretty good. I've been there. Last night, actually, no joke. But yeah, just venting, right? Healthy venting. Okay, I'm with that. And she's too angry to sleep. Yeah, I've been there too. I'm sure a lot of us have. Oh yeah, working. I bought some boxing gloves during my recording session, and well, I don't actually have a thing to hit yet. I'm going to buy it in the new place once I move there because I don't have any place for it here. But I've discovered that I can actually hit my mattress. It's a little weird, but the mattress is actually a really good punching bag. And I'll just do that for like 3 or 4 minutes, which probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but I want you to picture just doing nothing but non-stop rapid-fire punches for 3 minutes. It wears me out pretty badly, and it pushes a lot of that through. Gets my heart rate going, helps me vent. It's a great thing. It's just bam, 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 as hard as I can. Then move the bed back because I knocked it off the thing, and then bam, bam, bam. Anyways, I have a mean punch. Then she goes to outright sabotage. This is not healthy venting. Normally I'd complain about this, but this actually makes perfect sense, and it's also good for the show to show healthy venting, punching the thing and going up to get a drink of water, and unhealthy venting, sabotaging your sister's work effort without her knowing, and show those in immediate contrast to each other so you can see the difference between healthy venting and unhealthy venting smack next to each other like that. That's good. That's good that they showed that. Yeah. This then leads to the dream sequence. I want to say that I really like this dream sequence. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. Gum. I really like this dream sequence for several reasons. First of all, it follows a wonderful dream logic. In fact, one of the moments in the dream sequence is the kind of thing that I've actually had happen in my dreams. I've mentioned how I have very lucid dreams. Most of my dreams are very realistic, but there's also a sort of connecting thread that I don't know what else to call that makes perfect sense in my dreams. And I'm going to explain it to you by just telling you what happened in the episode, because that's what happens. Oh, there's this noise. What the heck? And she gets up and she looks out the window, and there's this fashion show, and and then the scene cuts to the fashion show, which she is in. It's not a fashion show, it's the award ceremony, which she is now there, fully dressed in ready, because of course she is. There's no transition. She's just there now because her attention is now on the award ceremony, where she is now at and an active participant, right? One of the common formats for that for me is when I'm watching a movie in the dream, and then I'm in the movie, and then I go back to watching the movie, and then I go back to being in the movie, right? That's extremely common for me. There's just this sort of it's this almost illogic logic to how it connects, because there's a logical thread there. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's this. Oh, of course it's for me. I mean, who else would it be for me, right? And so you're already there. There's no transition. It's just it's really smart. I know that's a weird thing to comment on, but the dream sequence is extremely well constructed. There's also there's some dream logic going on there too, because she has absolutely no problem with the fact that her sister is now a rain cloud literally raining on her. Her first thought is, oh my god, why is that in the shape of my sister? It's, why are you always ruining everything? Because it's so logical that her sister would literally rain on her, right? And then, because Tabitha St. Germain is freaking amazing as always. Also, water is wet. You saved me from a rarity? Yeah, I'm dreaming. By the way, one really minor point, and then I'll let go of the dream logic thing. She's in the dress gown at the award ceremony, right? And she looks up and the rain's coming down. It's like, Luna! And the very next scene, which is less than a second later, she's no longer wearing the dress gown. Again, perfectly logical. Because in the logic of the dream, well, I'm no longer at the awards ceremony, so obviously I wouldn't be in the dress anymore, right? And again, it follows that same logical, illogic kind of a thing. It's brilliant. I love it. Anyways, this is a good episode, if it's not obvious. I really like this one. Yeah, I like that too. As I took it, there's a lot of little details. A lot of little details in this episode. This is probably getting a red. I'm just saying. Hang on, where am I at my notes? So there's some dolphins, of course. Very important dolphins. Now this is yet another... we're up to like 5 things to talk about in this episode. This one is the most obvious one that hits the main theme I've been mentioning this whole time. Communication. This is the classic concept, right? One person sees one angle, one person sees another angle. Both people see completely separate things. Lack of... It's a complex issue, actually. It's lack of information, lack of perspective, lack of understanding of information, because information by itself isn't usually enough. You need to know how to interpret that information, statistics, etc. But in this case, it's obviously shown in a fairly simplistic format. Literally, she didn't see everything, therefore, this is just straight up ignorance, which is just lack of knowledge, lack of information. So, yeah, the people thing to is statistics. Let's just move on from that. So in this simplistic format, she literally doesn't see all the information, and as a direct consequence, she presumes something. Luna then shows the other side of the coin, so she has full information. And, as per usual, the scene is completely changed by that, which not only is good constructive of writing, because it's harder than it sounds to write a scene that is A, but appears to be B with chips pulled out of it. That is harder thing to do than it sounds. So good props to Polsky, who wrote this one. But also props to the episode for doing this in general, for showing that this is a thing that is important. Not only communication, but you need to be aware of the full situation. Also, I'm going to go and admit that the first time this episode made me feel was in this scene. Why? I just kept standing at the top posing, waiting for somebody to notice me. But nobody ever did. Yeah, I know that one. Like, you put a lot of work and effort into something, and you really want to show it off, but you don't want to just walk up and say, hey, look at this. So you just kind of bare, and nobody notices. It took me a long time, and this is going to sound like bragging, and I don't mean it as such. It took me a long time to realize that most people don't pay attention the way I do. The only reason I pay attention as well as I do is because it was drilled into me from a very young age by my mother. Most people just aren't paying attention. That's just life. And, yeah. Dolphins again. But yeah, to be clear, what's funny is Luna doesn't have a lot of lines in this episode, but she is brilliant as always. I mean, Luna's one of my favorite ponies, so whatever. But in all sincerity, the way Luna is in this episode is perfect. The fact that she goes so far above and beyond her duties as the Maiden of the Night and the person who handles the dreams really shows how much personal empathy she has for Sweetie Belle in this situation. The fact that she really actively feels what Sweetie Belle is feeling, because of course she does. One of the important things here, though, and this is something that needs to be mentioned. I'll get to that, Lord Herman. I saw you mention that in the chat. That needs to be mentioned is this is kind of a unique situation in that in both Sweetie Belle and Luna's case, neither of the people who are neither of their older sisters are trying to overshadow them. Celestia is just being Celestia and trying to be a good sister, and Rarity is just being Rarity and trying to be Rarity. Sometimes the other person is someone who is actively trying to overshadow you. That is a separate category, and that does need to be acknowledged. That needs to be mentioned there. Anyways, so how does Luna know about the birthday party from the other perspective? Now, there's a couple of obvious options here, but the most logical one is that this is something that Rarity has dreamt about. That's the easiest answer to that. Now, we know that in dreams you could come up with stuff... oh, jeez, Ruth. Yeah, I'm with you on that. We know the dreams can be morphed into whatever. That's actually something that's going to be a plot point later on. But in actual information on the past, well, that's a little bit different. The only way this lines up for me is, like I said, if Rarity has also dreamt about this, and thus this is something that's already into her understanding. The other possibility here is that that was manufactured. Now, I'm okay with that, as weird as that may sound, because what I'm saying here is that the specifics are manufactured, but the general is the same. In other words, Rarity was trying to do that for Sweetie Belle, was actually trying to help keep her friends around, was actually trying to help her little sister have the best party, and Luna filled in the specific gaps with presumption or otherwise fabrication in order to get across that point, which would still line it up as being acceptable because Luna is well aware of the fact that Rarity is not trying to overshadow her and is not trying to pull the spotlight away, right? We could tell you that simply by watching the episode. Also valid, Salder. That is a valid point. Not true in my experience, generally speaking, but that is possible for exceptions. I will acquiesce to that, absolutely. So, that's also... So, Savacon brings up another possibility. The first possibility I don't agree with at all, which is that she just was watching. But no, the far more likely possibility is that she knew about Sweetie Belle's issues and asked Rarity in advance in preparatory for meeting her tonight. After all, she was aware of the sabotage. She does want to help Sweetie Belle, personal empathy, and she does show up physically later, too. So it is entirely possible that she flat out approached Rarity and was like, hey, remember this birthday party? What happened there? That is feasible. I could see that, because she does go above and beyond to help Sweetie Belle this episode. Now, this then leads to two other points to talk about. First of all, the core idea of understanding. There's this line Sweetie Belle has, I forget how she phrases it, where she mentions, I thought I was the only person who wigged out and freaked out over trying to make sure things were perfect. One of the... I know this is going to sound stupid, but one of the core points I have heard of, or I have discovered in my life, is the key point of understanding is understanding. Let me try that again. See, this is why I suck at communicating. Yeah, one of the things I try to do very often is I try to pull a lot of this stuff into personal relation. Stuff that is likely that we actually have experienced, or you, to be more specific, have experienced in your everyday life. I do this with everything I cover. And I try to pull fantastical concepts from fiction into real-life everyday things so that you can now have an approximation and understanding of exactly what's going on in the fiction. That's part of my approach for analysis. The reason I do that is because that then helps with understanding. People have more alike than you'd think, to be blunt. The picture's different, but the framework's the same. You know what I mean? And they're using the same ink, and they're using the same canvas, and you get the point I'm trying to get across here. And so, looking at someone and realizing, hey, they X, and I also X, and, I mean, I don't want to get too much into this, but I really do believe that if more people realized the connecting points between people, the similarities that we have, and the understanding of that, and the increased empathy and sympathy that would lead to, we would probably have a better world as a consequence of that. Yes, this is just another way of saying Rule 0, shut up. So, yeah, of course Rarity would obsess over this thing, and of course she's obsessive about this, and of course Sweetie Belle would never have understood that, because most people don't understand that. Most adults don't understand that. Most adults don't bother to think about the other person that they're insulting or attacking or abusing is a person like themselves. It's so easy to understand that kind of thing. All you have to do is have been there yourself, or have something equivalent yourself, or to imagine it happening to you, and then you're there, right? Thankfully, in My Little Pony, the 12-year-old does actually realize this. Realizes the connecting points between her and her sister. And that helps open her up to sympathy and empathy for her sister. Notice that that happens immediately after. So first, she was wrong about things because of perspective. Then she connects with her in a personal way. Then we get to consequence. This is another thing. Now, I don't have evidence of this one. But I've long believed that more people are ignorant than they are malicious. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm just going to use the episodes example, just to make this simple. I'm just going to pull out this thread. Here we go. Job done. Wait, it's going to cause her severe damage and harm? Oh god, no! I didn't want to severely damage or harm her. Ignorance, not malice. She doesn't actually want to hurt her sister that badly. This is very clear. It's just a prank. It's just a little thing. But when the reality of consequence is made clear to her, that ignorance is destroyed, and what's left is, oh god, what have I done? Right? I have no evidence of this being a true thing in real life, but I have believed for much of my life that more people do things to hurt other people out of ignorance of true consequence than out of legitimate malice. A lack of understanding, if you will. So Sweetie Belle then sees the direct consequence of her actions and naturally flips out about it. Of course she does. And you'll notice that from this point on, the dream kind of goes straight into nightmare territory, as it should. And of course, Luna basically is shoving her face in it as hard as she possibly can. Of course she is. Luna's already faced consequence, right? Now, I personally do think that Luna was influenced by an external force, as we've talked about before. But the point is, and as we'll cover in the future, Luna very much blames herself for Nightmare Moon. She knows consequence. She's been through this. So she is utterly unflinching in shoving it as hard as she can into Sweetie Belle's face so that she can understand consequence. Forgive me for meandering on this point for a minute. I've covered TOS recently, as most of you already know. There are actually quite a few episodes in TOS where the villain of the week is someone who isn't malicious. They're just ignorant. And one of the things that Kirk and Spock and McCoy do is they make them aware of what they're doing, and in so doing, the response is, oh my god, what am I doing? I'll use a direct example. I don't remember the name of the episode. It's the first episode, excuse me, that has Diana Muldaur in it as a guest star, who's really hot, by the way. I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke like that. It was a running gag in the episodes that'll be going live in like a year and a half. And I'm just continuing the running gag like an idiot. I shouldn't do that because you won't even see that gag until a year and a half from now. Anyways. Diana Moldauer is... she's taken over by an energy being. And the energy being... Dude, Diana Moldauer in like the 80s and 90s was legitimately a very attractive woman. No joke. But yeah, so she... The character she's playing, she's inhabited by an energy being. And the energy being is like, I'm going to keep this body. I'm not going to give it back because I want to keep having a body. I want to keep living. And she starts torturing McCoy so that he will comply with that. And then she freaks out over it and stops. Why? Because she's not an evil person. Because once she actually sees torture and the pain and the consequence of that, she's like, whoa! And flips out over it and walks away from it. This is a very recurring thing and something I talk about a lot in both the TOS and the Enterprise episodes that are going live next year. There's good, there's evil, and then there's everyone else. Most people are not actually good or evil. Most people are just people. And most people usually get pushed one way or the other. But at the same time, the normal person, once actually faced with consequence, tends to lean more towards good than evil. Which, of course, brings us back to Sweetie Belle. I told you I'd bring it all the way around. We're back to Sweetie Belle. We're back to MLP. So seeing this consequence... More dolphins. Lucius Malfoy is a beautiful example of that. I'm actually covering Harry Potter 6 next year. And that's another video where I talk about that exact concept, about the difference between a normal person and someone who is evil. Because I do not think Lucius Malfoy is an evil person. I don't even think his dad is evil. Or excuse me, I don't think his son is evil. Excuse me. I don't think Draco or Lucius are evil people. I think they are normal people leaning towards evil who then face actual evil and are like, whoa. You notice all three of the Malfoys push away from evil when they're exposed to the reality of it. Normal people. Anyways. So then we see dolphins again. Sploosh, sploosh. And this then leads to them being like, okay, we need to figure this out. And they'd have a couple little scenes where there's some humor and pop music. And nobody likes pop music. I mean, it's not called popular for no reason. And yeah, it's all well and good until you're the one facing the gun. Bingo. Sorry, that was a joke from earlier. Sapphire, we see that she's a bit of a perfectionist as well, which makes sense. It helps keep the theme between Sweetie Belle and Rarity and Sapphire. Okay, so we all talked about the dolphins and how that kind of came back. That's a good Chekhov's gun. You know my favorite Chekhov's gag in this particular episode? As Sweetie Belle takes the thing away, she shouts, "Oh, you've got to see this with the cinnamon ribbon!" Moving on. So then we have a chase scene. Okay, sure, whatever. Rarity has telekinesis, right? Can't you just reach out? Whatever. Now, I don't actually have much to say about the finale of the episode. It's competent. But what I do like is the final lesson of the episode. The final lesson of the episode is actually a really, really important one. Gargoyles, the show. Gargoyles actually touched on this exact same lesson. Saying you're sorry does not make it better. This is one of those really interesting lessons that children in particular really do need to learn, and frankly, there's some adults who need to learn that too. Saying you're sorry does not make it better. I'm not going to touch on this in brief, but for those of you who watched Lore Week, if Ubisoft comes forward and apologizes, nothing's changed. Actions make it better. Making it better makes it better. And you'll notice that what she does is she goes out of her way to get it back in order to actually repair it, and then she uses Luna's advice to add the dolphin. She does to make it up to Rarity. Key distinction, very important. Very well done. If it's not obvious, I gush about this episode. This is actually a really good episode. I do have to be completely honest in the fact that this is the first MLP episode I've seen in about 6 weeks, because, I've been working on the TOS and ENT stuff, but Nevertheless, this was a good one, and I didn't forget. Let's go ahead and get the journal entry here. This is from Sweetie Belle. Let's see. Well, I guess I have another entry to write, don't I? Having a big sister who steals your spotlight can get really frustrating. Especially if that sister is so amazingly talented that she seems to outshine everything you try to do to make yourself stand out and be special. I thought I had it bad with my sister Rarity, but no pony understands this better than Princess Luna. And she taught me an important lesson. She showed me that my jealousy over Rarity's talents could destroy her future. I'm just lucky I have a sister who's also my friend, and that friends forgive each other. As Princess Celestia so perfectly said to Princess Luna, it's wonderful when sisters can work out their differences, is it not? I think this at least deserves a red. What do you guys think? I could be argued up to purple. This is a surprisingly good episode. I'm usually not a fan of the CMC episodes, with like one big exception, but this was really good. So let's see. Let's look at our existing purple. So we have Return of Harmony. That's the beginning of Discord. Luna Eclipsed, which was just an amazing character piece at front to back. Magical Mystery Cure, the season finale, series finale. Hurricane Fluttershy, which was just, oh, the biggest feels episode so far. And Mod Pie. I knew there was another one. There it is. Season 4, episode 18, which we covered a few weeks ago. Which was also just absolutely nailed it across the board. You know what? You guys have argued me up. I'm down. Let's do it. Poiple. We'll do it up to Poiple. Whoops, that's the wrong color. There we go. For anybody who wants to see, by the way, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and... hang on just a second. There we go. There we go. Here's the spreadsheet I'm going to be keeping up to date going forwards. I'm just going to use the Google Docs from now on so anybody can look at it rather than just using the local version. So that's where we're at right now, and you can kind of see it. So that is it. Let's go ahead and chop off the local recording.